But I believe that on the 6th of January, the State Secretary is landing here with a delegation, and they will start the works. But the Parliament of St. Martin hasn't agreed to anything yet because we haven't seen anything yet. We have gotten, over the Christmas season, after a lot of pushing and shoving, watermarked documents that were the greatest secret in the world. Mr. Chairman, the documents that we received are old documents because, let us be honest, 2 months ago, we got the London packet. We discussed the London packet with everybody. I discussed certain items in here about the rule of law in this country and how we're moving forward with the prison, etc., etc. Mr. Chairman, what bothers me a little bit is we put things in a confidentiality mode and we create an impression by the public that something is amiss, something we got to keep it secret. Mr. Chairman, in the letter from the State Secretary to the Prime Minister, he made it abundantly clear to her. He didn't ask her opinion. He made it clear to her that she's going to accept the conditions in the letter that was approved by Curaçao and Aruba already and sent to the Council of State. We had no discussion about the Coho law anymore. It's up in the first chamber now for discussion and review, I believe. And I'm saying to myself, but wait a minute. Why can't we just be open with what it is and talk about it what it is? Because tomorrow, the basis of the discussion is how we're moving forward in the short term with the Coho, with the entity. But what is St. Martin going to talk about an entity that it has no clue what the entity is as Parliament?
I would like to know what is the government's position on this committee, in particular the support of this committee and decolonization. And why am I saying that, Mr. Chairman? Because based on what my honorable colleague made mention earlier, it was a part of a condition that government should distance themselves from, one, the pro-Swaliga, to decolonization. It was an issue. It was a topic. I would like to know, Mr. Chairman, and that's why I thought, it would have been elaborated a bit more in this presentation from government. What are their position? What's their position on these certain issues? I am not seeing it here. I'm not feeling it here. And I would want to believe that as Parliament, all of us should be going into IPCO with one voice. Mr. Chairman, it doesn't have my voice. And it doesn't have my voice because, in my opinion, the presentation is it's lacking. It's lacking. There's nothing in terms of the beef in this presentation, that we are going into IPCO with a position saying that this is the position of Parliament, one, on the pro-Swaliga, one, on decolonization, two, on the Coho, the final. How and what do we stand? In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, what are we standing on?
3 laws. Which are these 3 laws? So we are saying 3 laws, but which are the 3 laws that the government has indicated that they have prepared and that Parliament will eventually have to debate as far as it pertains to the conditions? I have that question. If you're going to mention it in the presentation, which are the 3 laws? What exactly is in the pipeline for Parliament to discuss regarding the conditions and the measures to be taken? So I have that question. Mr. Chairman, in this presentation to be made, Parliament very nonchalantly is saying where the budgets, so the amended budget 2020 and the proposed budget 2021 are at this time. And we as a Parliament are just repeating what the government told us and are expected to sit back and somewhere, hopefully, because we got dates before that did not materialize, and now we're being told by the Minister of Finance that the budgets, so the amended 2020 and the 2021 draft budgets, we'll get them somewhere in the second part of February. And we are presenting this to the other participants in the IPCO meeting when, on the basis of that we are saying the government is in total default as far as the deadlines for budget are concerned. And if that is the case, we know it's the case, but then the government needs to give Parliament of St. Martin a strong reply. Why? Why we are sitting here all through the holidays? And imagine this presentation we're making when all through the holidays, those of us who were able or even interested to follow the debate taking place on, amongst other places, Curacao, all through the holidays, and it was about their budget. And now we are presenting that the government told us to sit back and await the budgets somewhere in the second part of February without any hard evidence and basically an apology to Parliament. That's what the government should be submitting when they're telling us, well, you know, we can't meet the deadlines as stipulated by law for the budget.
I was questioning the confidentiality of the Landspaket, the package of reforms that are intended for the country. It's not just available on the Tweede Kamer's website, it's also available on Curaçao's government website. So I am not certain as to why we continue to operate in a manner that leaves the St. Martin population, the average St. Martiner, unaware and pretty much clueless as to the content of what is coming down. Whether it is good or bad, whether people interpret it as a blessing or a curse, the fact is that the information should be available to the general public. And I just wanted to state that publicly, that maybe the Prime Minister could reconsider the decision then to mark the documents as confidential, because I highly doubt that it was marked confidential from anyone else, considering Curaçao is available for their public.
The note that MP Boncampo said, the position on Coho must be clear. We do not have a position on Coho as such. There was a motion of Parliament that was never retracted. There's a motion of Parliament that still stands when there was a first debate on the entity. But today, Coho is not a discussion that is taking place in Parliament as a consensus law. And when that reaches there, every individual member has a right to say what he or she wants and has the right to vote his or her conscience. MP Manuel asks if this is the position of government presented by chair of the CCARE. Some of the information we needed to rely, or the information where it pertains to developments that are taking place within the country, we need to get that information from government. If government does not provide the information, we cannot provide the information.
Firstly, I want to say that as far as I'm concerned, I'm very much disturbed by the visit of St. Martin of the Minister of the Department. This is your first visit and your position as Minister of Overseas the Department after the reshuffling of the cabinet. And you chose to come for a very quick visit to the island. And what is most disturbing is that there has not been a clear purpose of the visit defined prior to his visit. And it bothers me to know as well that spend more than 24 hours on St. Pat and just a couple hours on St. Martin. I believe that our country, St. Martin, deserves much more respect, much more attention than what has been given by the Minister of Overseas Department. It's unacceptable that our country that has so many difficulties that I could list later on only spend just a few hours just to say, for the record, he was there. But how much can you discuss? You know, so when you said a walk-in visit, I can question that. Was it really, truly a walk-in visit on St. Martin? I understand that President gave out to the Deputy Claire Javois boycotted the meeting. I will not sit here and judge and say it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. I still need to understand what is the message that the President of the collectivity and the Deputy wanted to send to the officials in Paris. So it's not clear thus far what is the purpose of the boycott. However, I'm saying that during these critical hours, it's important that we seize all opportunities to dialogue with our authorities in Paris to bring them up to speed with the difficulties that we are experiencing and how urgent it is to take our specific realities into account, especially when it comes to taking decisions on our behalf. So proper, meaningful dialogue to me is of critical importance at this hour, because we need to move on as a country, we need to move on as a people, and the partnership that our existing organic law provides for must be given its full importance in within these settings. What I want to say is that we could not have ignored the fact that there is a high rise of the unemployment situation among young people in our country. We have a severe shortage of decent housing for our families on the island, especially the underprivileged families. Roofs have not been repaired since Irma. You know, we have a crippling educational system on St. Martin that is not producing the expected results. And there's also the need for higher education on St. Martin. And not forgetting another key issue to me, which is our existing organic law, which is our constitution, that has to be modified to offer a higher level of a greater level of political autonomy to the country. And I want to also say within this setting that the competence or the charges or the responsibilities which have been transferred to St. Martin since 2007, the law provides for a compensation of these charges, but let it be known to everyone that these charges have not been compensated up to this point. So these are discussions, these are dossiers that must be given, the state must be given full attention, both by the local government and also by the state government. So I was figured that the visit of the minister would be to what has been to discuss all these important issues for St. Martin. My understanding is that it just settled around just the situation and the vaccination process to go into effect sometime in the near future. So again, I question what has been the official purpose, the reason why Mr. Le Cornu came to visit St. Martin, other than to have it on his agenda that he visited all the territories, all overseas departments of the French Republic. So from that point of view, I'm very much disturbed, and I will express it in my upcoming visit with the new prefect on St. Martin. I will let him know that in the future how I believe that he should go about planning a visit to St. Martin and discussing the content of the visit, where the elected people of the land would also play a significant role in the whole organization of a minister's visit to the island.
The government has been hiding behind this so-called free mandate of what they call the parliament. However, that's the free mandate of every individual member of parliament. The parliament as a body does not have a free mandate. It is, again, it is the right of every individual member of parliament to have his or her position stated without having to rely and look back on others, be it supporters, be it party, etc., etc. That's the concept of the free mandate. However, there is also something about a government's plan, a government's planning that is carried by a majority in parliament. So in essence, it comes down to the position of the coalition on the main items. And in that context, the government / the coalition needs to be clear on the matter of the relationship within the kingdom. That just requires a few clear sentences, because if that is not clear, and if the government retracted whatever position they had out there about the relationship in the kingdom, if that retraction was only done in order to secure the funding from the Dutch government, it is going to come back and bite us. So the government can't just retract and maybe feel that they did that under duress, because otherwise would not have gotten the liquidity, but in the background are still actually operating as if they still hold that position. Again, how long would that be able to continue in such a fashion? So this government and this coalition needs to be clear to the people of St. Martin regarding their position on the matter of the relationship within the Dutch kingdom. Does the government of St. Martin see that issue, relationship in the Dutch kingdom, as an issue that they should now expend energy, expend expertise, and expend money on? Yes or no? Or are we, for example, going to look at very specific issues, such as the one that the governments of the kingdom were supposed to look at, from a letter going to the different governments going back in late 2019, to try and fix some of the issues that we have in the construct that is called the Dutch kingdom. That's what the government of St. Martin owes the people of St. Martin an explanation on right now. Those are the type of issues, those big ticket issues that affect the future and livelihood of the people of St. Martin, the relationship within the kingdom. That's one. Our economic revival, our economic recovery, our tax system, our health system. Let me pause a moment there. What is the government's position on the matter of universal health insurance? So health insurance, health coverage for all the people. Where is that matter that again was put off and kicked down the road solely for political reasons? Where is that matter? The government should be cognizant of the fact that, especially given the priorities due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our healthcare needs to be even more closely looked at. Preventive health care for our people becomes paramount at this time, because we can't put off that kind of preventive health care because of the pandemic. These are the things that the people of St. Martin are looking forward to hearing from the government on. Where are we with our educational system because of the adaptations that had to be made in connection with the COVID-19 pandemic? By now, we should have some general idea as to what it has done or has not done, what has it allowed us to do or not do, and based on the outcome of those type of discussions, to be able to chart the course going forward. Again, this is the kind of discussion that we should be looking for from our government.
The innovative Banco Matico contactless smart card. Your Banco Matico smart card is now equipped with a contactless feature for payments, so get ready to tap and go. Contactless payments are fast, easy, secure, and accepted worldwide at all Maestro-enabled contactless terminals. Tap for transactions equivalent to or less than 100 NAF, or the US dollar equivalent. You will receive notifications via email anytime you tap. Tap, tap, and pay fast. Fast with WIB. For more information, visit our website at wib-bank.net. Tap and go with your partner in progress.
We have received indication that we will be getting some of the vaccines, and unfortunately, a lot is still up in the air. And that's not to say, I wouldn't want to commit publicly to say, yes, it's coming in January, and then lo and behold, we have barriers that we have to overcome. What I can say, though, is that they have already secured some of the equipment needed to store the vaccines. So right now, while we don't know the exact brands and the exact quantities of the vaccines that we will be getting, what I can say is that we've limited it down to the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. So both of which are already being distributed in various countries in North America and Europe. While I guess I say the first quarter of the year because a lot needs to happen before we can actually implement the vaccine strategy and start vaccinating the public. So one of the things, I believe last week they had, or the week before, they have already shipped the equipment that we need to store these two vaccines. Of course, with vaccines, we have to also consider things such as the cold chain. So the term cold chain is used to describe the conditions under which the vaccine has to be stored. So from the time it leaves, let's say the Netherlands, to the time it is at the public health department for distribution and administration, we have to make sure that we maintain that level and the integrity of the vaccine. So, it's these equipment that we will be receiving are adequate to store the vaccines. There's different temperatures that need to be stored for both vaccines. And so the Netherlands has ensured that the Dutch Caribbean islands will have the equipment needed to be able to take on the vaccine, whether it's Pfizer or Moderna. And then in terms of the vaccine strategy, what CPS and the Public Health Department have been working on is developing this strategy, which is, I'd say, in the final stages, but it is an all-encompassing document. So regardless of any intervention that comes into play, a new vaccine being one of them, we have to ensure that the public health has the logistics and the staffing, the manpower to actually execute and implement vaccines. So for us, what we have put together in this implementation plan, among other things, is once we have the vaccine equipment, we need to make sure that we have proper procedures to monitor that the storage is, that the temperatures are actually being maintained. We have to ensure that we have a plan for how we're going to administer the vaccines, who we're going to administer the vaccines to. One of my roles in particular is working with a working group to define our priority groups. One of the questions I think that the public wants to know is who will be first to get these vaccines? And so much like the other countries in the world have done, they have prioritized healthcare workers, frontline workers, and the elderly. I know personally when I was involved with H1N1 vaccine implementation, we also looked at priority groups. And so at that time, it was the both extremes. It was the elderly and the young. And COVID-19, I think, is no exception. So we have to look at, you know, using the evidence that we have, having conversations with the GPs, with the hospital partners, with healthcare partners to see, you know, should we also focus on our frontline workers? Should we also focus on the elderly? Because these are the vulnerable populations that we are seeing even on St. Martin. So, you know, the vaccine strategy has many components. I will say one big component for us as well is looking at our communication. So how are we informing the public? Are we creating FAQs? Are we, you know, sensitizing and preparing the public to be receptive to vaccines? And on a side note, what I can say is that CPS, SNB, and DCOM partnered together about 3 weeks ago to develop a public survey. And the intention is to use that information gathered from this survey to adapt our communication strategy for vaccinations in particular, because we want to make sure, you know, if our public is skeptical or if they're a bit weary of the vaccine, what do we need to do from a public health stakeholder, from a public health perspective, to make sure that they feel comfortable with the knowledge that they have about the vaccines that we're getting. So all that to say that the implementation plan and the strategy is multifaceted, but there are certain components that we are prioritizing, such as the communication strategy, such as the priority groups, to be able to be ready for execution when the vaccines do come to the island.